So released in 1986, this arcade game was a bit ahead of its time. It sported non-linear gameplay, a selectable soundtrack, and the arcade cabinet, at least for the sit-down version, had hydraulic motion simulation. A lot of games after this, and even now with select indie titles, are pretty much based off this game. This is a pretty important game in the racing and arcade community. I remember playing this growing up as a kid, going to the arcades. If they had the sit-down version, I was always in that one because it was so cool. That freaking arcade cabinet was like the tops. I mean, it was the tops. So the graphics are outstanding, even now. It has that look that a lot of indie retro-inspired racers strive to nail down, which are kind of based on this game. So yeah, it kind of fits still with today's games. From the pretty detailed pixel Ferrari Testarossa to the vaporwave artwork that still looks really good today, the design and art are timeless. And since this is the arcade original, there really are no compromises here. It runs smooth, it looks great, and the interactions with the wheel, the gear shift, the pedals make this better than any home port. Although I hear they are making a home port, a tiny one, a miniature one, and there are, I don't know if it was OutRun, but I'll correct myself on the screen here, but they may have made an OutRun game already. Not Tiny Arcades, but that other arcade company. That's still way too big to put in my apartment. The bright colors, the animation, and the sense of speed are all here. From when you crash and when your partner kind of waves you off or shrugs their shoulders to say, "What gives?" to the opening portion of the game where the flagger lets you go and the crowd turns into the open road. This really is a great looking title. The super scaling here does a great job in that too. These aren't polygons, but pixels, and the technology helps make it look smooth, with obstacles gaining more pixels as they get closer. Victory Run tried to do that, but that game had limited hardware and really couldn't do that, but you can see the similarities between those two games. However, OutRun just blows it out of the water because it was a more powerful machine. The scenery really does make this game. I found myself just looking at the surroundings because of how interesting everything is. The fields of rocks, the pillars, the ocean, or the beautiful skybox. Here's the thing, this is an arcade game, so it's very hard. It was meant to be hard because it's gotta collect those quarters vibe to it, but the gameplay is dead simple. You drive, you shift from low to high, and you make sure you slow down around those turns. That said, it gets a bit hectic when you have a narrow road and 3 cars blocking your path. Unless you go the easy route, which is always the left fork on the road, you're gonna have a hard time getting through all of those checkpoints. And trust me when I say, some of those turns where the cars are just blocking your path is so frustrating. But again, they want you to put more quarters into it. While I was playing this with a controller, the best way to play is with a sit-down cabinet or even upright cabinet, just as long as you have that wheel, pedal, and shifter. The force feedback on the wheel is something you just can't experience with a controller, sadly. But I did have fun with the controller, just not the fun you remember having as a kid growing up. Now, you're not racing against anyone per se, except the clock. It's kind of an enduro run style game, whereas the developer said was going to be a cannibal run style game, but obviously since you really don't have competition, it's essentially just a time attack game. The key to this game is not crashing and which gear you're in. When you start or get back from a crash, the low gear lets you accelerate faster, while crashes, even one crash, really does slow you down, so you really have to learn how to not crash. How to weave through traffic and keep your speed up. This is a real nail-biting game. I mean, it is an arcade game, but there is a lot of skill to it. I mean, you have to know how to drive kind of well for this game. Plus, you also have to know when to slow down, where to slow down. But like, one of the biggest, coolest thing about this game is like, not just the cabinet, but the pathing is not linear. You have so many paths you can go down and so many endings you can see. Every game you play can be a different experience. I mean, that's wild for 1986. The music and sound effects are top tier here. Like, of course it is, it's Sega in its prime. From the selectable tracks to the tire noise, the engine noise, this is the quintessential soundtrack to any arcade racing game. Now, could the music have been a little better? Yes, it's 2025. The soundtrack is a little on the twangy side. a little scratchy. But this was kind of the trend at the time, and based on hardware, I'm sure this was pretty good for when this came out. So the pros of this title is, one, it's an easy to play game, but you do have to learn to play to get better at it. It's very rewarding when you hit a checkpoint because you know it's your skill that did this, not luck. The graphics still look great. They look great back then, they look great now. The soundtrack is still pretty good, and like I said, it's very addicting to play. But some of the cons are, while it's still good, the soundtrack is starting to get a bit of its time feeling, you know what I mean? And I wish there was a better map than the one they have right now to know kind of how far we have to go. Or what we have left to go. And I wish it was a little bit more forgiving when you have like 3 cars blocking you on the road and you have to try to go around them from the outside. OutRun is a great game and a long line of ports and sequels. It's an arcade racer that I'm pretty sure any generation would enjoy playing and can be played on multiple mediums like a phone, handheld computer, or the old school arcade cabinet. I'm glad that 1UP Arcade, that's what it is, I wrote it in the script, and I should have read the script ahead of time. But anyway, I'm glad that 1UP Arcade made a sit-down version of this, and while it's nowhere near as good as the original cabinet, it's great that the game still lives on, in that original form. So where does this live on the chart? It's a toss-up between Neo Drift and this. Victory Run did a great job of kind of emulating this game, but you can't compare the two. And while Neo Drift Out does its thing and does its thing well, there's so much more vibe, more fun, more everything with OutRun. It just takes it up a notch. It's not as technical and it's not as detailed, but don't forget these games are almost 10 years apart and OutRun still delivers. So I'm going to say OutRun is our new #1, at least the arcade port. I plan on actually ranking the ports as well because I find that they are all very different. So you kind of need to. OutRun in the arcade is very different than the Master System, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, OutRun is our #1, and I'm betting OutRun is going to be #1 for a very long time. So this game has a lot of versions. Originally released in 1994 on the 3DO, and if you had no idea what that TurboGrafx 16 was, you sure as hell don't know what the 3DO was. But I'm playing the PlayStation version, which came out in 1996, which is an updated version with varying graphical changes and new tracks. Although we will play the 3DO version because that has the X-Man, which is such a crazy concept. We'll play that version eventually, but this is the PS1 version. Essentially, you play various race styles or just drive in exotic muscles or JDM cars. You may have heard of the term dad game, and this was a dad game before dad games existed. You have point-to-point, head-to-head, and tournament to choose from, but the best part, since this is road and track, you have about 30 minutes of interactive 90s goodness, informative slides, voiceovers, and videos on the cars themselves. Which I did watch and record all of it, just in case we want to go through that at one point, maybe a live video. It is something magical. Like, I would get the PS1, I think they did this all the way up to the PS2, and then they stopped doing it, which is so tragic, but the first game, oh, this is so cool. If you like weird 90s, like infomercial, CD-ROM, data dump things with videos, with full motion videos, you're gonna love this game. I think this is better than the game, actually. So for its time, this game was insane when it came out. You didn't have racing games like this or content like this really at all. This truly is a game that is best played on original hardware or through the screen of a CRT. You can tell it was never meant to look like this high res, like the world is breaking because of it. Still, I remember this game growing up. I think the biggest parts are the interactive elements where you look at the cars. For its time, high-res screenshots and videos showcasing every single car you could drive in the game. It was basically Wikipedia before we had Wikipedia. I would just sit there sometimes and just watch, look and listen at the Diablo selection over and over again because that car was fire. That said, the graphics at the time were sharp, realistic, and I'm saying realistic with air quotes, but it didn't take long for it to start looking old. Obviously on other platforms like PC, it looked a lot better, and the 3DO version had its own flavor too, but the PS1 brought some of the resolution down to make it smoother because the original was choppy as f***. And let's face it, the cars are they're just passable today for you to know what they are, except maybe the Viper. I have no idea what's going on here, and I'm pretty sure the first Viper had no hardtop of any kind, or top like legit no top. This thing right here did not exist, I'm pretty sure, but then again, it was probably really hard for them to render a guy sitting in the open cockpit. I mean, as you can see, everything around the world here, this game was like struggling. But all that aside, the game is still passable today in a vintage kind of way, we'll say. While it does look a little bland, there's a charm to these old Need for Speed games that you don't really see anymore. Maybe in a game like Forza Horizon, but even those have gotten way too much flair and neon in them that a game like this just doesn't really exist anymore. I will say the HUD is strangely 16-bit or arcadey compared to the game itself, unless you go into cockpit view where the HUD still exists, but at least it looks more realistic. And talking about the cockpit view, I love that the revs and the speedometer needle actually shows what's happening. That's a really nice touch to this game, especially for a PS1 game. I also really like that all cockpits are modeled in the game. A lot of games at this time didn't do that, and I forgot that this game did that, so when I went into cockpit view, I was like, oh wow, this is insane. Remember when I said in the first episode racing games are great because you get to try out cars you might never get a chance to? This was that game I was talking about. This was the game that started it all, for me at least. The tracks do look great, however. They all vary in different ways, but like I said, it was never meant to be played in this high of a resolution, so literally it's breaking on the sides. That said, the mountain tracks, the city tracks, the coastal tracks all feel different enough to have their own vibe. Plus, you can pick either morning, midday, or evening, which changes the mood a lot. The gameplay is very bare bones, but extremely competent. The cars handle way better than a lot of racing games at the time did. They're not squirrely, they don't feel like they're on ice or oil, and while it's a bit arcadey, Road & Track wanted to make a game that was more realistic. Not so much sim-like, but the cars have weight to them. You can't turn or brake on a dime, and you have to get up to speed to actually feel the speed. Or the need for speed. There are multiple ways to play the game, including a checkpoint that really is just a cruise in the skies, a head-to-head race and tournament. They're all fun, but the way the game presents it to you is very disjointed. Nothing feels like it's connected, and the tournament feels like it wasn't given precedence compared to the other modes. The big thing I feel they spent the most time on is the history lesson and information they give you about the cars. And that's the shining spot of this title, don't get me wrong, like, they knew what they were doing. It is a car magazine. It was a car magazine, I think it's still around. The one odd thing I remember about this game was that every race started in neutral, and you can't go into drive until the countdown ends. You also always start in cockpit view, which, since they have a model and interactive elements in those cockpits, you damn well know they want you to see those before anything else. I mean, I think the cockpit here is like the star of the show, and everything outside of that is kind of like, especially now when you're seeing this in 4K resolution. The cars all handle great, but you don't really get the sense that any one car handles differently. Maybe it's a little faster and the tuning is a little better in, say, the RX-7 rather than the Viper, but for the most part, there is no real difference in the cars. And like I said earlier, this tries to be a realistic racing or driving game, but in reality, it's an arcade racer that leans more towards realistic. Yes, you have to brake and you have to rev match, you have to know when to use the handbrake, but you can also slam into an opponent and cut them off to place higher, so it's pretty much Forza Horizon. I also really like the replay mechanics. You can tell this was a car game made for car people because you can literally just rewatch your race again with different camera views and speeds. It'd be nice if you can actually control the camera and get rid of that on-screen controls to, you know, back in the day I guess VHS record this thing to make some early machinima, but it's cool that it's here anyway. This is probably where the game lacks the most. It has serviceable engines, skidding, and crash noises, but they're getting to the point where it's kind of comical. I don't think the engines really have unique sounds, the horns are all the same, and the crash sounds are straight out of the 70s Saturday morning cartoon sounds. The music is very much a product of its time, with the most mid-hard rock or electronica public domain music you can think of. I mean, honestly, Victory Run had better music, and the sound effects are on par with Neo Drift new technology. That said, the narrator and music in the video slides are peak 90s. The second you see that Diablo slide around a turn with the hard rock guitar riff hits, it's pretty much just saying, fuck yeah, this is sick. The game is very easy to pick up and play, and not that hard to learn and master. The car choices are a great mix of exotic sports cars, American muscle, and JDM legends. The information and interactive elements when learning about the cars are just so sick. I mean, this is the best part about the original Need for Speed. The tracks, while don't change the mechanics, are unique and have some genuine beautiful parts to them still. The car physics and mechanics still hold up today. The selection of modes is great. In addition to the 2-player support, you definitely get your money's worth out of this one. The cockpit view is so cool. To see a digitized version of those 90s cars along with the actual working speedometer and rev counter is pure magic from the 90s. The music and sound effects are a little disappointing. The cars, while iconic, look pretty bad even for this generation. The game seems just put together without a hierarchy. It just needs a more united design. The graphics overall are just passable, and if you're not playing on original hardware and a CRT, it looks like it's about to break. There are hidden barriers on the side of the road. While you can go onto the shoulder, you can't really hit the edge of that road because of invisible walls. It sometimes gets in the way when you're going into a turn and you smash into nothing. This is a great start to what used to be a legendary franchise. It's gone downhill recently, and honestly, it doesn't resemble in any way this original game. The series as a whole, I mean. This was great to come back to, because this takes me back to the roots of Need for Speed. And EA has also never remastered this or put out a collection that I know of, so it's getting harder and harder to play this game in legal ways. I loved this game as a kid, and I still find it fun as an adult. For someone who doesn't have the nostalgia for it, you might like High Stakes more, but in terms of gameplay, it still holds up and should be a game you definitely check out if you can get it to work or emulate it, or find an original copy. So where do I put this? I mean, can I judge the interactive encyclopedia they have going on here as part of this? I mean, it's not racing, but it's part of the game. I feel this is a fight for first here. Again, so OutRun versus this. I mean, this is gonna have to go above OutRun. I mean, it's just such a pinnacle game in racing history, right? I'm not saying OutRun isn't either, but this has more cars, more tracks, more modes. I mean, it doesn't have the splitting path or the best music though. Okay, so I think instead of first, this is second. It's just not as good as OutRun, when both these games came out in their respective time. Yes, it's a great game, it's an iconic game, but there's something about OutRun that is still our top number one, and Road and Track Presents The Need for Speed is gonna be our number 2. That's kind of a hard one. I mean, I still want to put Need for Speed as number 1, but it just doesn't feel right, you know? The game is there, but in terms of what it does compared to what OutRun does, it's not on that level yet. I bet it will be with later Need for Speed games, but not this one. Released in 1987, you can take control of a Ferrari 328 or Formula 1 race car and race the Trans-American race from the west to east coast. You travel from LA to San Francisco to Athens and race against Beetles and other Testarosas, and man, this game is so awesome. I grew up with this game, so I'm a little biased, but also it's a pretty good game for the NES, especially in 1987. I'm old as f***. Alright, so 1987, when you think about what was out back then, it was like black and white days with Technicolor. So like I said, you have to remember, this is 1987. And games were coming into their own. Graphics weren't stylized per se, they were just there. However, Rad Racer is a pretty f***ing stylized game. Not only do you have 3D, I'm talking the blue and red 3D, you have a very chill vaporwave looking game, like a low-res version of OutRun. That said, the title screen is fucking amazing. The strangely highly detailed car selection screen is fucking amazing. The first, second, and not so much the third course are fucking amazing looking. Again, for its time. Is it a little bland? Yes. Is the UI and what I'm assuming is the dashboard a little weird? Yes, but it's very serviceable for what it was at the time. The beach with the clouds and palm trees look great, the cityscape at night with the highway under you is magical, and the desert along with the Athens, they're alright. I'm not gonna lie, it kinda gets boring after the desert. But the car is very detailed. Actually, both cars are detailed. Actually, minus the lack of color, the opponents who really aren't opponent cars look pretty good too. Plus, when you hit turbo, the screen shaking is a very nice touch. They really didn't need to do that, but it gives you a great sense of speed, and kind of broke itself apart from other racing games at the time on the NES. The game also does a really great job with elevation. While you really can't do hills or heights on the NES, the way the road breaks and turns mimics that of hills, which is a really nice effect, and the parallax horizon works well in addition to the lines on the road. It kind of helps you get that sense of speed. Overall, the game looks great for what it is for when it was. And while indie games have kind of passed this era of racing games and more onto the SNES or arcade versions, this is still a pretty good looking game and holds up with a lot of the newer indie games that mimic those Super Nintendo arcade games. It's a throwback, it's a vibe. Gameplay is bare bones as you get it. You turn left or right, brake and boost while dodging other cars. That said, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it. While you don't have opponents, you are racing against the clock. But the one thing I like more about this than Victory Run was the way the game gives you some more time if you run out of time. Like you can coast a bit depending on your speed, and if you're lucky, you'll hit that checkpoint, which is the best feeling in the world, let me tell you. The music is stopping, it slows down, you hear the do do do, and then you just see the flag come up over the horizon. You're like, I can make it, and you make it, and you're like, oh shit, here we go, how am I gonna f this one up this time? Now, the game doesn't have any custom ability, no shortcuts, no alternate routes, you can't even shift in the game. But it really doesn't need that. The game is fast, but with enough control that you're able to dodge other cars because there is some severe and wacky physics if you hit or they hit you. It's fun, it's somewhat addicting, and it can be pretty nail-biting as you make a turn with the tire screeching and you have a car in front of you and next to you. Like, Need for Speed did not get my adrenaline pumping like this game did. The music is actually really good. The 8-bit tunes are like the baseline of modern-day chiptune albums. Each song has its own identity, and the melody or that one part that hits really hard for each song. Low-key, you totally can get into the soundtrack with this one. The engine noise, the crashing, and the tire screeching are all pretty legit too. Like, for an NES game, with its limited resources, did a great job with trying to create an arcade title with a home console. This game is really easy to pick up and play and pretty easy to master. The soundtrack is a S tier here. The sound effects are pretty good for how old this game is, and the car choices, while limited, are pretty great. The levels just vibe even for how old this game is, and you either kind of love or hate the 3D. If you do love the 3D, you will get a headache. If you time out, it's game over. You can't pick up from the last level and you have to start all over again, which is such a bummer. The two cars are essentially the same, just different skins. Which sucks, because you would think an Indy car would be faster than a Ferrari, or at least have different physics. Because of how good the music was, I do wish there was more music choices, but I understand the limitations of the NES cart and what we have to deal with. And while I wish you didn't have to restart the game all the time, I understand why they did that, because once you beat the game, there's not much to go back to. This is kind of one of those games you play till you beat, and then you put it down for like 50 years and come back to it. Maybe not 50 years, I'm not that old, maybe like 20 years. But I think the biggest thing here is that there is no two-player support. Like, nothing. Like, not even like change like, okay, player 1, player 2. It's just you're playing. The game is surprisingly good. It can hold up today with arcade racers on the mobile or indie market. Like, this could be put into itch.io today and it would feel like a modern game, minus the bulk game over stuff. Since it's on a Nintendo system, it's pretty hard to play today. I'm not sure if it's on Virtual Console, but since you have to subscribe to it and can't outright buy the game, I'd say go the emulation route, trust me on this one. This is a toss-up if it's better or worse than Victory Run. These two games have a lot in common, and it's basically OutRun, but who does OutRun better? So I'm going to say the repair mechanics and the way the game plays is a bit more cooked with Victory Run. But Rad Racer has the music, it has the sound effects, and it kind of has the vibe down a bit more than Victory Run. Not graphics, but there's something way more vapor about Rad Racer than Victory Run. But then again, the skybox is way more nicer in Victory Run. You know, as much as I love Rad Racer, I'm going to say it sits next to Victory Run, but not above it. So here is our new number 5. But again, these two are pretty neck and neck here, like tomorrow I might say something else. Okay, so there's not exactly a lot on this game because, I mean, look at it. I think the claim to fame was the 8-player cocktail table style, which looks insane, by the way. Now, playing this alone on the couch while my little kitten, now a cat because it took a while for me to actually make this script, is sleeping next to me, and I'm using an Xbox Series controller is absolutely not the way to play this game. There's really not much here other than the multiplayer feature. This came out in 1977, which is insane to me. I mean, a lot of you probably think games from the 80s are insane, and that was my childhood, so sorry Gen X, but honestly, this is still kind of sick. I mean, I can only imagine being in the arcades with this, with 8 other people playing this. This is like the OG party game. Now, this is the sequel to Sprint 4, which was a 4-player game, and kind of looks exactly the same, minus the sheer amount of cars. Okay, wow, I mean, what graphics, right? But in all seriousness, this doesn't look bad for 1977, and I feel the graphics wasn't the reason people played this thing. That said, you can tell these look like cars. I mean, there's a rectangle with 4 smaller rectangles and dots that outline a track, but that said, it's very smooth, very responsive, and very crisp, so yes, Sprint 8, good job? So this is just a circuit race. It has no story, it has no rounds, really. It has 4 levels and that's it. There's a timer, but it's not shown. I think the number is the amount of laps you do, and the traffic represents the CPU. So even if you play this solo, you can't see if they beat you. This was made to play with 7 other players. And I will say this has the same problem where you need to learn the controls to play this, but once you do, it plays pretty well. I got the hang of it in a few minutes and I was passing all these bitches. So okay, I have to get into the mindset of this is an arcade game at an arcade, and since this is the 70s, probably a really nicotine smoke-filled arcade with beer and jive talk all around. That's what they used to say, right? Jive talk. So I can see this game being pretty fun back then. I mean, the gameplay isn't really boring, to be honest, or frustrating. Like I said, once you get used to it, it's pretty fun. There's not much to learn. Like, you drive, you have a low and high gear, like most arcade racers at the time, and you just have to make sure to stay off the white dots. Now, the white dots don't do what you think most arcade racers would do. You don't bounce off them, or you don't blow up, instead you slow down or stop altogether. So stay off the wall. It's pretty easy to do except when it gets really tight in corners or turns. Also, some of the tracks have a shortcut, which is a bit tricky, but very rewarding if you pull it off. And the computer players will use that shortcut. What music? But in all honesty, the sound effects are just passable as car engines and screeching tire sounds. I mean, it's passable for the mid-70s. I'm pretty sure if there was music, it would be a screechy mess that would be annoying in like 3.2 seconds. But also, this was meant to be an arcade. Like, again, I don't think like the graphics or the sound effects were the point. I think it was like, hey, you have 8 drunk friends playing this game and a seedy arcade in the 70s. So the game is very smooth for what it is. Like, I was shocked at how smooth it played. Again, that's probably because of the power behind the arcade machine. The game is challenging. Like, it's not cheating and it's not frustrating. It could be frustrating, but it's very challenging, and challenging in a good way. The 8-player gimmick seems pretty cool. I mean, I wish I had this arcade machine and like 8 other people or 7 other people we can play on like a Friday night or Saturday night. There's nothing to this game. I mean, really nothing to this game. You just go around, get points, and that's it. If it's just one person playing on the Atari collection, what are you doing, man? It's just not that fun. I mean, this is what I would consider a bare bones video game. Like, barest to the barest bone. Like a dog ain't gonna pick up that bone because there's nothing on it. The controls, why you can get into them, are not the greatest all around. I mean, it's one of those top-down racer games, so a controller's not the best part, and I doubt a wheel would have been great too, but you do kind of pick it up. So, Sprint 8 is a weird, boring, but also crazy-looking game. This can only live as an arcade 8-player cocktail arcade game. Playing it alone on a couch with an Xbox controller does not do this game any justice. It's great that you can play this game and relive those old days or see the evolution and history of racing games. And it is cool seeing like the roots of Sprint. Like I think they just came out with a new version of Sprint that didn't do too well, but you know, it's Sprint. It's not a bad game or a good game, it's just a game. And that's kind of the best you could say about it. So, where does this sit? That's the point, right? Where does it sit? Honestly, it's not high, but it, once again, is going to be above Motor Rotor. I mean, this is leagues better than Motor Rotor, that piece of crap game. So, here is our new number 7. And Motor Rotor is just, it just keeps going down. I am not sorry. So yeah, those were the games for today. I'm sorry I took a hiatus on that one. Life gets in the way sometimes, but hopefully we'll come back with episode 3 soonish rather than not soonish. But I'll see you guys later.